Hey, what's up, guys? It's Domke Shot for fxray.com and welcome to another amazing retouching tutorial. Well, today we're gonna retouch hair like a pro. That's why you can also call me Dom Scissorhands. Here's the before picture of our beautiful model Lara. And before we start, I would like to show you how my makeup artist Joanna created this amazing hairstyle. If you want to spend money on a photo shooting, you definitely should invest in a good hair and makeup artist and model. They can really make the big difference between a shot that is okay and a shot that is amazing. Especially when doing a hair shooting, you want to have someone who really knows how to handle hair. The better they work, the less retouching you'll have. And in this case, we also had artificial hair parts to create this special hair shape and silhouette, which actually composes this image. So what I actually trying to say, having a good team is more important than having super good equipment. So here's one of the images we ended up with. And before we start retouching, I'd like to show you what you have to look for and what's important when retouching hair. There are stray hairs or flyaway hairs, which you'll find at the contour of the hair. A hairstylist can add hairspray or an anti-static oil to reduce them radically. Then you'll always find a lot of crosshairs. That's something that is impossible to prevent. There are just too many hairs on a head. Next, there are spots on the head where the density of the hair is low, or maybe spots without hair at all. And finally, pubic hair. Hold on. What? Sorry. That wasn't supposed to happen. I mean hair on the face, you know, those little bright hairs you hardly can see, but which are there. Okay, that's, I'm a little bit confused. Anyways, I don't know how this could happen. I'm really sorry. Well, before we get deeper into retouching, let me firstly create an analyze layer to highlight the parts in the image that we'll be working on. There's no obligation to retouch hair that perfect in every image, but for this type of image, it really is important. So we have the stray hairs all around the silhouette here, which we're going to remove first. Then we have tons of crosshairs, which actually is the biggest issue and the most time-consuming part. Then we also have the spots with lower density that need to be filled. There's the shape of the hair that needs some modifications, especially the curves. And finally, the color of the artificial parts that need to be matched. So, some work is waiting for us. Not all of it is fun, but it needs to be done, right? Let's start with a new empty layer and name it stray hair. So what do we want to do? We want to get rid of these flyaway hairs that are located all around the contour. Joanna did a great job, so there are not too many, but they still are there and need to be removed. Select the clone stamp tool and sample current and below. I'm gonna select an area that is close to the shape and start sampling over the actual hair with a very soft brush. And I'm trying to make a soft transition between the new painted area and the background. Just make sure to really get rid of all stray hairs. Okay, that looks about right. Next, I add a black layer mask to the stray hair layer. And now I select a white soft brush and 100% opacity and start painting over right by the contour. Always use a proper brush size. And what you don't want to do, you don't want to create those super sharp edges, but you really want to have a nice soft shape like it actually is, just without those stray hairs. And I'm really walking around the whole image, otherwise you would see that we replaced the background. Okay, that was pretty easy, but to be fair, the background was pretty simple here. So we eliminated the stray hairs, and next we're going to adjust the color. We want the upper donut to match the color of the real hair and also match the plaited hair. Create a new hue saturation adjustment layer and switch to the reds channel. Desaturate for now and invert the layer mask by pressing Command I. Mask the plaited hair with a white soft brush. Then go back to the adjustment layer, set the saturation back to -8, adjust the hue to about 20 and the lightness to maybe 15. That seems to work. Create a levels adjustment layer, increase the midtones randomly, invert the layer mask and select the upper donut with a soft white brush. Here we go. Back in the levels properties, I'm trying to match the luminosity and also the color in the blue channel and the red channel, which works fine. Select the adjustment layers and press Command G to group them, and also put the stray hair layer in a separate group. Next, let's create a new empty layer and name it Retouch. I'm going to show you a couple of common techniques how to get rid of those crosshairs and also their weak points. Let's start with a healing brush and sample current and below. My brush is slightly bigger than a hair and I'm looking for references that are close to the area I'd like to heal. But unfortunately I damaged the structure of the hair, which makes them look fake. So let's try another tool, the clone stamp. Again, the size of a single hair, and this works a lot better as long as the colors are not too different. You could switch to blend mode to darken when painting over brighter hair, and to lighten when painting over darker areas. But that's still something that may look weird when you're not working very precise. Well, then there still is the smudge tool, which can sample all layers as well. And with the brush size of a hair, I can extend the length of an existing hair and paint over the crosshairs. Always follow the direction of the hair. But when we take a closer look, you see that there is no texture in the painted hairs. You could go to filter noise, add noise with a pretty small amount. That will help. But altogether, it really doesn't look good if you don't work very precise and spend a lot of hours in it. So what I do, I delete the retouch layer and we're going to go another way. What do we actually want? We want to change the texture of the hair without dealing with color issues. That's something we did in our previous tutorial, skin retouching, with a technique called frequency separation. If you don't know what frequency separation does, make sure to watch this tutorial first. On our website fxray.com, you'll find a downloads area where you can download our frequency separation action for free. Once they are installed, you'll find them in your action panel, here the Photoshop CC version, and we're gonna create a simple frequency separation for this case. I'm being asked for a value for the low frequency, so I set the radius just high enough to not see any single hair areas. In this case, 12 seems to work perfectly. The action created a new frequency separation folder in which you'll find two layers, the color on the low frequency and the details on the high frequency. Now I am able to edit the structure of the hair apart from the color, which is exactly what we want. Go to the Tools panel, select the Mix a Brush tool and choose the Wet preset. Set the wetness to about 40%. We are going to modify the shadows and highlights on the hair to make them look more even. That is also a technique we already showed you in the skin retouching tutorial. Now we're applying it to the hair. Basically, the mixer brush allows me to pick a color and then spread that color. Depending on my parameters, it will apply more or less of that color. That's also a great way to remove a dark hairline or accentuate highlights and shadows. Okay, so that's what we already changed. The hair looks so much more even without us having even started to retouch it. But we will now select the high frequency layer, press Command J to duplicate it, then press Alt Command G to clip it. The image looks weird now. That's because you have to set the blend mode to normal, otherwise you have a doubling. Select the stamp tool with a size of about a hair and change the blend mode back to normal. Then, you need to change the sample mode to current layer. Then you remove all the crosshairs without almost paying attention to where you picked the reference from, since only the texture will be copied. And of course, you need to be careful and kind of get a feeling how to sample, but it is very much easier and faster this way. So what I'm actually doing, I'm sampling a spot and then painting in the direction of the line. That looks way better than what we saw before, and it's much better to handle. Okay guys, let me quickly retouch this area here before we continue working on the other parts. Let's take a closer look at this cue. There's not much of a texture here, but still you can see the crosshairs. It's really important to sample the right spots here, otherwise it will start looking fake pretty soon. Okay, while the main part looks good, this area here is a big mess. Retouching this would take me quite a while, and I'm not even sure how it would look like then. So here's what we do. I select the part of the already retouched area with a lasso, press Command J to duplicate the selection, and clip it with the layer below. I can move this texture actually around the whole image, but I want to position it at one specific point. Then press Command T to transform it and enter Warp Transformation and try to imitate the shape and the direction of the hair below. And that looks pretty good. Add a layer mask and eliminate the edges of the new texture and try to create a smooth transition. Well, that saved us a lot of time. One thing that catches my eye all the time is this highlight here on a low frequency. So I'm just gonna use the mixer brush to blend it over. Okay, let's see. You know what? I think I quickly retouch the rest of the hair. So here's what I did in the last 10 minutes. Not bad for that, actually. But let's zoom in. The hairs now look very mushy and not really sharp. We could change that by adding a new layer and clipping it to the high frequency, then selecting a small brush with 10% opacity and painting in some highlights and shadows. Actually on a soft light layer. And that would work pretty well, but it's a lot of work though. That's why we already created a file with simple black and white strokes on an empty layer. Copy the strokes into the main document and clip it with a high frequency. And now we're going to adjust the shape of the strokes with Warp Transformation, which in this case works pretty fine. Like before, set the blend mode to soft light and maybe decrease the opacity. Then create a layer mask, remove the hard edges, create a smooth transition, and randomly paint on the strokes to vary the opacity. The lines, of course, are too plain now, so go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise, and set the amount to about 10%. Then go to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and set the radius to about 1 pixel. Okay, that's way better. I'm gonna delete the previous layer, maybe lower the opacity to about 50%. Hide the first and second layer so we only see a high frequency. Select the first donut roughly with a lasso and go to Edit, Copy Merged. Activate the hidden layers and paste the donut above the hair texture. Clip the donut with a high frequency, then position and transform it right to where the second donut is. You probably have to use warp transformation to get the correct shape. And now we remove the needless parts with a layer mask, actually an inverted layer mask, so we can paint in the good texture. And that was the second donut. Next, we want to create a new dodge and burn folder on top and click on the soft light layer action, which creates an empty layer in soft light mode. Hide all other folders so we can see the original image and start painting on the new layer everywhere where you see shadows in the original image with a black soft brush and 10% opacity. Repeat the step with the highlights and a white brush. Then activate the other folders and voila, that's the first dodge and burn layer. Some adjustments here. And let's blur it with about maybe 25 pixels. Create another soft light layer, and this time we focus on the highlights only. Adding some irregularities. And again a Gaussian blur, but this time with about 10 pixels. Okay. Select all folders, right-click on one of the layers and select Convert to Smart Object. Go to Filter, Liquify. We need to shape the hair a little better, rounder, nicer. Select the Push Left tool with low density and pressure and start correcting the shape. Okay, that's it, guys. Retouching hair always is a lot of work and it's not always fun, but it's definitely worth the time. This here was a quick demo, but normally you would spend a couple of hours on retouching hair perfectly. I hope you did get an idea why frequency separation is a really good technique, not only for skin, but hair as well. If you have any questions, make sure to contact us on Facebook, Twitter, or mail. My name is Dom Quixote. Take care.